to Life with Impact podcast. And on today's episode with Conversations with THUMEKA, I have a powerhouse, a guest speaker, certified financial planner, a wealth coach, one who is passionate about sustainable and generational wealth creation. My guest today is Tsungai Masendeke. Tsungai, welcome and thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy. I have been hounding you just to have you on today's show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and a privilege.
Oh, yes. So, before we get into anything, I think it would be nice for us to have a bit of an icebreaker. Right. So, if, Tsungai, you could invite 3 people to dinner, living or dead, who would they be?
So, top on my list, and I always say this, I definitely want to host Michelle Obama. Yes, I think for obvious reasons, being the first lady of the first Black American president, African American president. I thought those were big shoes to fill. And it would be nice to know what her experiences were. I have obviously read a book, Becoming, but it's a different experience when you actually speak to someone and you have a conversation with them about what life was like. How did she grow out of all the experiences? What pressures did she have to endure? How did she have to hold herself, as the first lady of the most powerful country in the whole wide world,
Right, that would be
whilst raising 2 beautiful daughters at the same time. So definitely top of my list, Michelle Obama. If you're out there hearing me, girl, please remember a sister in this lifetime one day.
Right.
And then the next person I would love to invite for dinner is Gracia Michelle. Yes. You can see I've got a thing for first ladies. So with Gracia Michelle, again, her story having been first lady to 2 presidents. How do you do that? Okay. So her story is very intriguing for me, and I'd love to host a person like that. And then the third person who I would love to have at a tea party or to even just have dinner with is, and this was hard because I've got so many people I love, I've got so many people that I love. So the last one for me, again, another first lady, would be Winnie Mandela. And again, I think I was quite intentional to think of, beautiful females that had something to pass on to the next generation. A lot of what I do is very generational. And each one of these women, I feel, had a significant role to play in setting the stage for us, the generations that were coming up. But also, they really did make us believe what was possible as a female. So yeah, that's my guest list.
Such a rich guest list. My goodness. When I say rich, with the kind of knowledge that they would pass down, mainly from their experiences. Beautiful. And then if you had one song, this is a funny one for karaoke, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Twinkle, twinkle. Are you serious? Karaoke.
So serious. Well, we are supposed to have fun while doing this one. Serious. I've got 2 beautiful daughters, and I was actually laughing the other day because I was babysitting my nephew. And guess what? Cocomelon is all over your head. So on a lighter note, definitely Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But I love Beyonce's song I Was Here. I really love that song, and if I had to be,
Words to the song.
if I had to choose a karaoke song, it would probably be that one because again, I'm such a generational / legacy creator. For me, I want to be remembered for having been in this generation and having left something, deposited something of impact, something valuable. So it would be lovely to sing that for myself and for the audience without necessarily cracking, but it's okay.
Or making any notes, but hey, still or sparkling water?
Definitely still water.
Okay.
Keep
I'm
it
a
plain,
sparkling
keep
girl.
it simple.
Keep it plain, keep it simple. And then last question on our icebreaker list, a trip to the Sandwich Harbour, which is a desert in Namibia where the desert meets the ocean, or skiing in St. Moritz in Switzerland.
That one was a tough one. But let me tell you, I actually had the privilege of being on the Jungfrau in Switzerland, where you have the highest chocolate factory, not just any chocolate factory, the highest lint factory, for that matter of fact. So, and through my experience, I really loved Switzerland. It's such a homely, warm, very green, as I would like to put it. Environment, the countryside is so peaceful. So it would definitely be Switzerland for me.
All right. Well, now down to the serious stuff. I read on one of your write-ups, and I'm quoting your words here. You had said that entrepreneurship has been an interesting journey, that it has challenged your beliefs as well. You further say that you are still very grateful for the opportunity to be a world changer and to impact lives through business and through what you do. That is amazing, and really, I'm honestly in awe and inspired. I mean, I read so much about what you do, and I think this would then lead me to one of the most important questions, which is what or who inspired you to become a certified financial planner?
Wow, a story about me. I'm normally very good at talking about other people. But I think for me, and I'll tell you about a little bit about my journey. So I went to UCT in 2006 and I studied in finance. So I have a Bachelor of Business Science in Finance. And being an international student, one of the things that they tell you is you must pay approximately 50% of your fees upfront within 2 weeks of starting school. Okay. And I remember in my second year, because I was coming from a country that had the highest inflation at that time, it was very difficult for my parents to actually accumulate the amount of money that was required in that space of time without it devaluing by the time they get to the bank for it to be converted into rands to pay for my school fees. Yeah. And in my second year, I was bordering exclusion. And it wasn't exclusion academically. I was bordering financial exclusion. And I remember walking up the jammy stairs at UCT with Smuts on my, not Smuts, with Fuller on my left and Smuts on my right. And those were two elite raisers at UCT at the time. And in the middle, there's this iconic car park where the students from these two raisers will park your latest Audi, latest Mercedes, latest BMW, etc. Yeah. And I thought to myself, goodness, these children are in varsity with me in the same era, but they're having different conversations with their parents. They're asking about money for fuel, money for tires, big mags, rims, subwoofers in their cars. They're talking about licensing. And there I am having a conversation. Will I have enough money to just get registered to complete the degree that I wanted to complete? So that was a life-changing moment, because in that one experience I had an epiphany. I said to myself, how is it that I'm just barely hanging in there, and yet the conversation that other people are actually having is completely different? And it triggered a desire to actually want to understand how wealth is created, how it can actually be grown, and how you can plan appropriately for different life events. And in my quest for knowledge, for wisdom, for understanding, I then got to understand about financial planning. And once I got that information, I was just so happy. I said, I cannot keep this good news to myself. I need to make sure that I impact as many people as possible. I tell as many people as possible what they can do to plan for education, what they can do to plan for their loved ones, how they can create wealth, how can they can protect wealth, how they can ultimately then transfer that wealth to the next generation. So everything about what I'm now doing is about helping people to make better financial decisions that will help them create sustainable generational wealth. And that's a little bit about my journey, very personal to me, but it's what has motivated me to be at this point today where I want to equip other families, equip other parents, equip other people on how they can master the game of wealth.
Impressive, and that is where your love for impact and changing the lives of others around you came, and how it started. Now, we read up about stats, and some stats are quite frightening, and particularly around retirement. According to Stats SA, under the Household Financial Independence and Savings, low retirement coverage. So they say that less than half, which is roughly 42.1% of the employed population, formally makes provisions for their retirement. What is the cause of that? What do you think the problem is? Why are people still struggling to really be disciplined? I mean, there's so many things that we factor in, but retirement. I mean, at times I think the conversation, and I'm looking at where I'm at in my age, and we should already know what we have put away. You know, are we going to be comfortable enough? We do not want to be a burden to our children or to the state. But these are conversations that we have to start earlier on. I think as soon as you start your corporate journey and earning a salary, and this is, but I mean, today's stats.
So 41% are actually trying to prepare. I'll throw in another stat. Only 3 in every 10 people are adequately prepared for retirement. Okay, some people will quote 40%, others 30%, just depending on which literature you're reading. But it boils down to the fact that people are underprepared for the life transition called retirement. And when I joined the industry as a certified financial planner 9 years ago, it was the same stat. Shockingly, it's still the same stat 9 years down the line, meaning that the dial hasn't moved. Okay, and I would attribute that to a number of factors. Number one, our current society is obsessed with instant gratification.
And that's to our own detriment.
To our own detriment. Because for someone who's 25 starting their job today to think 40 years from now, it's something they can't fathom. They cannot visualize it. Right. It's too far. And yet, the biggest asset they have at that young age is the time value of money. So when we are young, we don't take it serious enough. And by the time we wake up and smell the coffee, you are 45, you are 50, 55. It's too late. If I may just put it out there, it's too late. But it doesn't negate from the fact that if you've now woken up, still do something about it. Indeed. Take the first step, take some action, do something about it. So the first thing I feel is around the instant gratification. Then the second one, let's not lie, the cost of living has been increasing astronomically over the last 15, 20, 30 years. As a single person, you've got less responsibilities. Use that opportunity to actually start saving as much as you can for retirement. Because once you start having kids, it's late. It's late already. Not just from the fact that time-wise you are 10, 15 years down the line, but also from the fact that you have less disposable income available. Most people will save after spending, and we actually encourage you to save before spending. But it becomes difficult when you now have a lot of other financial obligations to still prioritize something that's going to happen 20 years from now, because you are looking at the situation now. School fees needs to be paid, the bond needs to be paid, fuel needs to be paid. You're looking at what needs to happen now. What do I need to tick off on my money management exercise that needs attention now? Retirement planning becomes an afterthought. It becomes something that you don't necessarily prioritize. So I think those two key things have really held us back. Instant gratification, if it's so far away, why should I even bother now? But also the fact that the cost of living has increased quite dramatically over time, as well as there being a lot more financial responsibilities and obligations. Back then, life was a little bit simpler. You had less you had less demands on the same level of income, and inflation wasn't as high as it is now. So it just becomes a question of how do you prioritize as an individual? And I would advocate from the time you are 25, please make sure you're allocating between 10 to 15% of your income in order for you to actually be in a position where you can retire comfortably. But the important thing to realize is you have to start now, you have to start today, because actually when I did some extrapolations or some analysis, the money you contribute in your first 10 to 15 years will actually contribute about 80% of the retirement savings you will have post 65, right? So those 10 to 15 years are really the deal breaker because of the power of compounding. So the earlier you start, the better the chances you actually have of making it from a financial perspective when you retire. So it is true, time is money. And when you start early, the compound effect is really substantial when you then retire.
It will do you good, and it's obviously to your advantage. And you are saying prioritizing, and I think a lot of people struggle with prioritizing. They are misplaced priorities. So it's to think, okay, do I put this money or 15% towards my retirement, or do I buy an expensive car and pay that towards whatever installment I'm paying towards the vehicle, or I move to a more plush or posh suburb, so it's also lifestyle and choices. We're not saying we shouldn't live the good life. Fair enough, do that. However, think of where you are going to end up in your 60s and work towards that. And let's be frank and let's be honest, it does, to the average Joe, it's like, I know, 40 years is way ahead. I mean, why should I even worry? Oh, I still have time. That's what they say.
So to actually help clients, to actually help clients that I work with prioritize appropriately, I tend to encourage them to utilize what I call the Pinter rule, which are 5 buckets you have for yourself, and each one of those buckets is important or is for a specific reason. Okay, so the first 50%, you actually use that for consumption as a guideline. Okay, then you automate 10% of your income towards an emergency fund, or what you call a rainy day fund. And the reason why we encourage people to actually automate the process is because then it's not based on willpower. It just happens and it's automatic. All right. So 10% goes to an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. Then another 10% goes to what I call your medium-term savings. So things like education funding. All right. Then the next 10% should go to retirement planning. And again, you're automating these things because you know it's something you will need to have in the future. It might not necessarily make sense now, but if you start with the planning, start with the execution, start with the implementation earlier on, it will serve you well in the future. Then the next 10%, we always encourage you to use that for debt management. So 10% towards short-term savings, 10% towards medium-term savings, the next 10% towards long-term savings, 10% towards debt reduction. And for those people that say, oh man, I work so hard, we say, you know what, treat yourself, honey. Have 10% in your YOLO fund. Have 10% in your fund. Have 10% that you use to do you, boo.
Nice.
And the reason is because as much as we want to prepare for the future, it's important to also make sure that we give you the opportunity to enjoy life today. Because we don't want to also be too extremist where you don't get to enjoy life now because you're saving your entire salary, your entire income to prepare for tomorrow. So we say, take the 10%, have fun with it. No questions asked. If you want to go on holiday, use that money for that fund. But then this becomes a guideline that people can then use so that the prioritization is less for them. They've got one less thing to worry about or one less decision to make about money. And if you automate it, it also makes it so much easier because then it's like your motor vehicle repayment. Whether you like it or not, it goes.
Indeed.
Your bond repayment, whether you like it or not, it's gone. And then you then work on what's left over and you then live within your means.
That is such an interesting guideline. And if I think if people, whoever's listening, and if they don't have financial advisors or planners as yet, best they get one. So here's the thing though, and it's about money again. You know, I read, this is an excerpt, by the way, that I've taken from a book, Richard Templer's book titled The Rules of Money. Now this excerpt says, the lovely thing about money is that it really doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what color or race you are, what class you are, and what your parents did, or even who you think you are. Each and every day starts with a clean slate so that no matter what you did yesterday, today begins anew. And you have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else to take as much as you want or need. So the only thing that can hold you back is yourself and your own money myths and beliefs. So when I read that, I then see that he's then speaking to the mind of a person to say that it all boils down to how, what is your psyche around money? And this is why I would like to ask you then, would you say that psychology plays a big role when it comes to our relationship?
Absolutely. And I will mention quite a couple of things to address this question you've actually posed. But I want our audience to actually realize it never started with the amount in your bank balance. It started with how you thought. It started with how much you believed you were worth. Because in essence, and I've done research for years and years and years because this was such a, it was a personal thing for me. I wanted to understand. I sought knowledge, I sought wisdom, I sought understanding. And I've learned half the time what differentiates those that end up making it and those that don't is based on how they process information up here. Case in point, we've all probably watched at least one episode of I Blew It.
Yes.
All right. People that come into large amounts of money, but because their mental capacity hasn't matured to the level of the value in their bank account, they can't handle it. And I always give my clients a simple example.
Yes.
If you're not growing your money mindset, if you're not growing your psyche, your appreciation mentally of wealth, of money, and you've got the capacity of a teacup, guess what? Even if you get a bucket size of wealth, because your mindset can only handle a teacup, you want to come to your natural form, meaning that you're going to do everything you can, which can be sabotage, irresponsible spending, squandering, so that you end up with the teacup size of wealth that you can manage, that you can handle, that you believe you are capable of managing. Which is why it's important for people to continuously invest in knowledge, wealth creation, having conversations with other experts like myself, so that you keep on growing your mindset around money. Because we actually always come into money, but what makes a huge difference is how much of it can you allocate purposefully so that it continues to work for you. What decisions are you making based on what you believe, based on your money mindset, that actually then allow you to make this resource continuously work for you? So if you have the mentality that allows you to hold a 25-liter, if you've got 25-liter capacity, guess what? Even if you're given 100 liters, you're going to lose the 75 unless you grow in your mentality, your mindset, and your capacity. So every one of us unconsciously is a money manager. We get, but we need to grow what we get.
I like that. Every one of us is a money manager. Okay. So we all have it in us.
We all have it. But how far you go will be dependent on the people you hang around, will be dependent on the literature you consume. It will be dependent on your own personal quest for growth. Because at our stage in life, and I'm not too old, we are at what I call the wealth accumulation stage. So you must always make a decision based on, if I allocate this R1 here, what return is it possibly going to give me? And return doesn't always have to be monetary. Sometimes it can be in the form of pleasure. Sometimes it can be in the form of deferring disaster. But every rand at this stage should give you a good return on investment. Every rand, because there's such a huge opportunity cost of not allocating it properly today. And that again is based on the mindset. Do you want to blow it, i.e. YOLO? Or do you say to yourself, actually, if I allocate this towards an asset that can help me generate income, I'm going to be better 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. If I take the same R1 and I invest it in a vehicle that can generate additional income, I'm going to be in a better off place 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. That mentality shifts you from being someone who wants gratification now to someone who delays gratification but then appreciates that in delaying sometimes is the reward.
In delaying sometimes is the reward. Don't spend it all.
I love this, because again, the only way you can impact generations is if you train them. The Bible says, train a child in the way that they should go and they will not depart from it. So I am of the opinion that we actually need to start teaching our children about money as soon as they can understand. It must not be a taboo topic. As a mom, the same way I'm so keen on teaching my child how to tie their shoelace, how they should hold a spoon, how they should actually drink from a bottle or from a glass, is the same way that we should have natural conversations about money. All right? And for our children, I say there are 3 important principles you can start teaching them. And by the way, by the time your child is actually 7, you've already input in them most of the things that they're going to need for their adult life. So don't leave it until they're too old. Because the sooner you get them to grasp these concepts, the better. All right, so the sooner the better. So if at like 3 years you can see, oh, my child can actually understand, and there's research that's been done even around, the marshmallow test, where you put a marshmallow there, you've got your 3-year-old, you put a marshmallow there, and you tell them, Johnny, if you don't touch that marshmallow for an hour, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. What are you teaching them already? Instant gratification versus delayed gratification. All right, so if Johnny can actually leave that marshmallow for an hour, you're already developing the kind of personality that will help him succeed in future. When someone will tell him, do you want a credit card or do you want a investment account. He's going to choose the investment account because you taught him through a marshmallow. So the 3 principles are: you must learn to spend, but spend responsibly. You must learn to save, but you must also learn to share. So with kids, I normally suggest have 3 jars. And for those 3 jars, if it's again 100 Rand as an example, allow them to put a certain portion into the spending, allow them to put a certain portion into the savings jar, and allow them to put a certain portion into the savings jar, the sharing jar, the sharing jar. Because what that teaches them is the principle.
Saving, spending, sharing.
Exactly. Because it teaches them generosity. You will reap what you sow. We want them to learn how to give. Because when you give, it will be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men pour into your bosom.
Yes, and you're instilling that philanthropic,
Absolutely, at a young age.
Behavior in them.
And at the same time, we also want them to learn to save. So at their level, they can understand saving, but don't just keep the money in the jar. If you have the jar model, then I would suggest that you always top up with some form of interest so that they know money can grow if you save it. Okay? But at the same time, take it a notch higher and teach them how to invest. There's a fantastic app called Stash, where if you're a parent, you can actually open a profile for your child and you can start stashing for them. And you can stash for as little as 10 Rand. So now they've accumulated 100 Rand in their savings jar. You show them, if I put this 100 Rand into your stash, it's going to grow. They also become comfortable with the principles of investing earlier on. Remember, we talked about time, value of money. But you're teaching them at an early age, because I cannot tell you how many clients I come across who in their 40s, 50s, 60s have money sitting in the bank account doing absolutely nothing except looking pretty on the bank balance.
Before we round up on the first segment of our podcast, I would also just like to ask, when it comes to speaking about habits around money, how soon do we start with our children? Now, here's the thing. I read something a week ago. It's the 20% rule, a guy who's making reference to scripture, and he's talking about money and saying it's not a bad thing, guys. In fact, we are not destined to live in poverty. We have a God who rejoices in us having a life of abundance. I mean, he says in scripture, I wish for you to prosper. But we'll come back to that. And I read about the 20% rule when it comes to money. So this guy goes on to say, for every $1, he uses dollars, put away 20 cents. For every $100, put away 20. So I'll say Rand. For every 100 Rand, put away 20 Rand. 1,000 Rand, put away 200 Rand. 10,000 Rand, put away 20% rule. And he had started teach. How soon can we start speaking to children or our young ones about saving and healthy saving and knowing that you need to put away something? Don't spend it all.
The beauty of compound interest, right? Where you put money today, you allow it to do its thing, where it grows. And it doesn't take sick leave. It doesn't tell you it's tired. And if you treat it well, it goes and it finds all its other money buddies. And it's like, THUMEKA is the one, guys. THUMEKA is the one. Let's go work hard for her. And I always say to my clients, your money must work as hard as you work. But it's about placing it where it's going to give you the best benefit, the best value, the best outcome, the best possible returns.
Just close up on our first segment, and then in our second segment, I'd like us to also go into scripture. And I always say the Bible is all encompassing, meaning that it has, from the beginning of time, the Bible has covered everything. Everything, nothing new under the sun. And with that said, there are over 2,000, there are over 2,000 verses that actually speak about money in the Bible. But we'll come to it just now. All right.